New episodes of Steven Universe have finally dropped. 6 new episodes, all of which are, at least for the time being, only available in the Cartoon Network app or on third-party streaming sites online. And considering that the Steven Universe app is only available, from what I understand, in North America, this is the one and only time you'll ever hear me recommend that you actually go and pirate these episodes. Watch them on the app if you can, because Cartoon Network can see that, and it gives them a good idea of how many people are watching the show. But if you can't, go pirate the episodes. It's Cartoon Network's own fault this time. Though the episodes are going to air, from what I understand, the very beginning of December, so if you can wait that long, go ahead, I guess. That said, let's talk about the first of these 6 episodes. Dewey wins. That bird is just not going to shut up, is he? We actually got a bit of a preview of this episode recently. It was the clip showing Connie upset with Steven and then leaving on Lion. The episode went pretty much exactly how I expected it to. Connie is upset with Steven. She calls him out for leaving to go to Homeworld, for sacrificing himself to Homeworld, instead of standing with her and fighting, as they had talked about doing, as they had trained to do. And Steven simply can't understand why she's upset. From his perspective, he only did something that was necessary. He felt that he had at least a small amount of responsibility for what was happening, and if giving himself up meant that no one else would get hurt, he was willing to do it, and therefore he's a hero for it. Therefore, he made the right decision. And while from a certain perspective, he absolutely did make the right decision, what he did minimized casualties, or at the very least, minimized potential casualties. But he still sprung the decision on Connie and the other crystal gems, and left them to worry about his safety. It is perfectly reasonable that they would all feel betrayed, especially Connie, who was his partner, his jam bud. The entire reason they've been training so hard together recently was to overcome exactly this kind of situation together. Steven leaving, it felt like a betrayal to her. The rest of the episode is all about Steven helping out Mayor Dewey. It's time for re-election, and I do not feel confident enough to try to pronounce her name, so I'm just going to call her Tiny Pizza Grandma. Tiny Pizza Grandma is running against Dewey for mayor of Beach City, which, based on what she said while campaigning, has some interesting implications that I'll talk about a little bit later. Point is, Dewey has an opponent for the position of mayor for the very first time. He might actually lose. So when Steven tries to help him to win, and Dewey realizes that Tiny Pizza Grandma, is it Nanifwa? Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know, not important. Let me know how bad it was in the comment section down below. When Dewey realizes that she would be a legitimately better mayor, he steps down without warning Steven ahead of time, despite all the work that they had done together to get him as far as he got. When Steven feels betrayed by Dewey's actions, he comes to understand what Connie must have been feeling when he gave himself up to Homeworld. Obviously, what Steven did was much more dangerous and on a much larger scale, but the emotional similarity is still there. And I'm not saying that Connie was entirely right and Steven was entirely wrong, but Connie's problem with Steven at the beginning wasn't so much that he had done what he did, it's that he did what he did and didn't understand after the fact why she was so upset about it. Now that he knows, things can get back on track between the two of them. Hypothetically, at least. And that's pretty much where the episode leaves it, that Steven is going to try to get in touch with Connie and work things out with her. There's a couple of interesting things that I want to touch on in regards to this episode and how it was written and how it was handled. First of all, it's interesting. They treat Steven and Connie's falling out here almost like a breakup, or that thing you see in TV sometimes where you're not quite sure if a couple broke up, but maybe they did. You know, that thing that Ross and Rachel did in Friends right before Ross ruined the rest of the show forever? There's this big air of uncertainty around Steven and Connie's relationship now, which is interesting because they never really treated their relationship as a romantic one. The two characters have never said on screen that they are in a romantic relationship. There's tons of evidence that they are, but it hasn't been outright confirmed. Treating this like a breakup or a potential breakup does more to confirm the nature of the relationship and does something interesting to another relationship in the series that I'll talk about soon. It's also worth pointing out, and I'm far from the first person to talk about this, that Steven's behavior is very Rose-like at the beginning of this episode. He's very sure that he made the right decision for everyone and doesn't really seem to care that nobody else gave him any input on it first. He comes off as having a very well-meaning type of arrogance, the same kind of well-meaning arrogance that Rose displays on a few occasions. I'm not going to dwell on this too much here because I might use it as a detail and analysis down the line, but it is really interesting to see this other side of Rose's personality that Steven seems to have inherited. Like, he cares about everybody, and he cares about the earth, and he cares about all living things, and sees beauty and stuff a lot like Rose did. But he didn't really seem to have picked up any of the more, I guess you would say, negative aspects of her personality. This is the first indication we've ever seen that maybe he did, and that's pretty interesting. What I like best about this detail, though, is that it's super subtle, indicating that either the writers just know the characters so well that they wrote this in unconsciously, or they included it intentionally for us to pick up on our own, which is just brilliant writing. It's not like this episode breaks my top 10 or anything, but it did address a lot of the things that I wanted to see addressed immediately after the Wanted special. It did a great job of setting the tone for the next few episodes, so I think it was overall a pretty great success. This episode also ushers in a new era for Beach City. Tiny Pizza Grandma flat out says that she wants to take more initiative against forces that would harm the planet. This might mean that we are going to see a new era of the government of Beach City participating in the defense of the planet, or even interfering with the crystal gems, thinking that they might be a threat. It opens up a ton of new story possibilities, and I am super excited to see where it goes. All of that said though, guys, what did you think of Dewey Wins if you have seen it? If you haven't seen it, I'm not sure why you watched this video, but anyway, let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.